Hello and welcome to the Mojo podcast with me, Richard Stokes. I hope you're well and in the best shape possible in these circumstances, and I hope this podcast and others are proving useful, entertaining, and even a distraction at this very confusing and challenging time, when we really do find ourselves on the edge, looking out into the unknown. It's both uncomfortable and strangely exhilarating all at the same time, a clash of feelings and thoughts that I've really been struggling with in the past week. So my conversation with this week's guest, Barry Holmes, was perfectly timed and immensely reassuring. I was introduced to Barry by a previous Mojo guest, Kirsty Lewis, from episode 6. And we've had some amazing conversations, and this was another of those. Barry runs a business called Zoom Creates, not to be confused with a video calling platform we're all living our lives on right now, whether that be meetings, pub quizzes, yoga sessions. Barry's purpose in life is to change the way the world thinks about learning. He's all about possibilities, and that's exactly what we talked about. A great subject area for the podcast, as Mojo is all about possibilities. The higher your Mojo, the greater the possibilities in life. Opportunities seem almost infinite, whereas when our Mojo is low, possibilities seem limited and restricted. And that's due to our thinking, and understanding that we are not our thinking is a big part of what Barry and I talk about. Of course, we start off discussing the world we're in right now. How could we not? Not least to make some sense of it for ourselves and coping with the unknown as best we can, both the possibility and the anxiety. And we move on to talk about loss, triathlons, health and fitness, a life free of measurement, having children in later life, and taking on the seeming impossible. Yes, we go deep and wide. So please drink this episode up like a big nourishing bowl of wisdom soup. I really hope you enjoy. And if you like what you hear, please do remember to subscribe to get notifications on new episodes, leave a 5-star rating, and the creme de la creme, if you can leave that review on Apple Podcasts, that helps the Mojo podcast be more discoverable to more people. Enjoy. So, hello and welcome back to the Mojo podcast, and it's great to have all of our listeners out there, wherever you are, whether you're in quarantine, lockdown, restricted circumstances. We're all, for once in our lives, all in a very, very similar situation, and doesn't that feel quite unique and very strange? As I said last week, I'm committed to carrying on with the podcast from my own lockdown scenario here in Ibiza in Spain, and I'm talking today over Zoom with Barry Holmes, and we're hoping that both of our Wi-Fi signals are as strong as possible so you can hear our conversation. So hello Barry, how are you doing?
Yeah, morning Richard. Well, I'm looking out my window and it's a blue sky, there's no wind, it looks like it's warm, it looks completely calm. So yeah, I'm very good. I'm not sure it's okay to say that, but I actually am very good.
Well, I think it's whatever state you're in. What would you where would your Mojo be, Barry, on a 1 to 10 then on a day like this in the circumstances that we're in?
Yeah, well, right now I'd say it's pretty much a 10. But it's interesting because it seems to oscillate between 0 and 10. I feel like I kind of wake up or have moments of feeling extremely disorientated and wondering where my Mojo is, and then just seem to drop into 10, which for me is being here, being with what is, and yeah, giving everything I've got to whatever is that's in front of me, whether that's playing with my 6-month-old daughter or, you know, on some emergency Zoom call. Yeah, right now I'm feeling really good.
Yeah, I love that, Barry. You kind of sounds like you're very present, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, doing my best.
and the oscillation bit I can completely relate to. I think in the last 10 days of living in lockdown, I've oscillated like you from 0s to 10s, and yesterday actually was probably my lowest day, and the Mojo was definitely quite low down. I was trying to work it out, and you know what it was? I wasn't being present enough. I was thinking about things I might need to do in the coming weeks and months, and was I making any progress on those things? And I had to kind of stop myself and go, well, maybe there won't be any great progress over the next few weeks, and that's just okay.
Yeah, yeah, I totally relate to that. Like that getting pulled into what might happen, what could happen, what about this, what about that? What if I'd done that in the past, and what if I didn't that? One of the things that's really helping. I mean, I really love where I live. I know you're in a beautiful place, and that helps. But also, I have some things that I do when I feel like I'm like losing myself in the day. It might sound strange, but I really like going for a bath in the dark, and I just sit there with my thoughts in the water. I love music, and I've got certain tracks that I just find, I don't know, they give me something. I think we all have things that bring us back to ourselves. I don't think it always has to be mindfulness or meditation. I'm hugely supportive of those things, but I think there's really small things that just help bring us back to right now. And I think, yeah, I think we're all finding those things because I think a lot of the time we're not conscious of having them or needing them because, the cliche being busy is sort of different now. The vast majority of my direct experience of the last few weeks has been generally people are suffering, like literally and psychologically from the worry. And largely people's response has been an outpouring of kindness and a desire to actually reflect on, well, what can I do to be useful or of service? And it's creating a huge amount of adaptation. And I think that probably links to a theme we're going to talk about today around possibility. It is interesting, the whole going virtual, because somebody sent me a brilliant link to something which said, if it's not good before, then virtual is going to be even worse. So the feeling of being in these virtual conversations for me is everything. And that means a bit of banter, some humor. The other day we all went around the room and found a random object and shared it on the screen and we started laughing. Is if you try and do the virtual stuff in a formal way, and you're doing that all day, you can start to climb the walls, but we're all in the early stages of it. I think we all have worked virtually to a degree, but now we've moved that way 100%. And for me personally, before this happened, I was moving the other way. My preference is to be with people, be in the room. I love physical contact, interaction. And it's been interesting. I can't say it more directly. It's like getting over it, as in it is what it is. And actually the contact, and for me personally, the contact and the relationships I have definitely got stronger, more direct, more honest, with my family and my friends. And yeah, it's, I'm still in the sort of wondering, fascination, curiosity with everything that's going on. And yeah, strangely, a part of me is really enjoying that, the complete unknowing and the newness of what feels like, it's like we all woke up in the same world in a different world, and we're all trying to figure it out and navigate it in our own way. And lots of people, including you, through what you're doing, are trying to help and contribute to that. So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing times,
isn't it? And I think that's that bit, that universality of it. With it, we're all in it together. It's not. I mean, it was 6-8 weeks ago. It was China, and I was talking to people in Hong Kong, and businesses were closing down, and I was trying to be as empathetic as you possibly can. But until you're in it, you realize you can't really be. Oh, that must be terrible. How would that be, not to be able to go about your normal day? And look now, we're virtually most countries in the world are in that position. It's just incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and that is the unique nature of this experience. So I'm old enough to remember the miners' strikes when we had power cuts and had candles. There's obviously 9/11, which impacted all of us, but it impacted us emotionally and psychologically. We weren't necessarily part of it. But the uniqueness of this situation is it is universal. So there's no other. It's not happening over there and I'm over here. And you hear about, my partner was saying about, Prince Charles has apparently come out, and you think, wow, if members of the royal family with all of that protection and resource are in that situation. And I don't know how other people feel about that, but I find that incredibly reassuring, in the sense of we are all in this together. So whatever we create from this, we'll create together. And that unity of our humanness, for me, was the thing that was significantly missing before. And I felt a lot of where we were moving to was moving in the wrong direction. So you wouldn't have wished what's happening on people and in the world, but there are enormous opportunities and possibilities with how we respond to it.
Absolutely, and that's, and as you say, the broad theme for our conversation today is going to be around possibility, and we're going to talk about personal journey that you've been on in a bit. But it was, I think, very natural we were going to start the conversation with a conversation around coronavirus, because you can't not. It'd simply be an unnatural thing to try and ignore it. And that, what you were saying about, having that sense of possibility, optimism, almost excitement around it. I think a lot of people are feeling that, including myself and yourself as well. I'm feeling a little bit sort of strange about that, a bit on edge about that, because this is, as you said, this is a crisis, but there is this sense of the world is changing and possibly for the better, but before the better comes, there's going to be lots of pain and loss and grief and all of those things, which may be why I'm just feeling a bit on edge about this optimism piece. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think for me, you said the perfect word, which is edge. I think we are on an edge. I gave the example the other day to some friends. I said, it's like, you're hanging on to the side of the swimming pool, and then you swim out to the middle to feel what it's like to not touch the bottom and whatever, and have that experience. But then you can swim back and grab hold of the side. And what I said was, that side is removed. There is no side to grab hold of. So we are living and experiencing something which feels like an edge. And one of the things I'm at least trying to do is not see it as this or that. I think we can easily get into labeling things and judging the thing when the reality is none of us actually know. And that unknowing brings up mixed feelings. It brings up curiosity and excitement and possibility, but it also brings up fear, terror, anxiety. And so I think it's important we have a care and empathy for each other. My mum's 74. She's got COPD. She's got 27% lung capacity. And she put herself into self-created lockdown 2 weeks before we were told. And she was absolutely right. And, she's terrified. And we talk every day, and we have, movie nights. But yeah, her level of fear, and she's living in that place on her own at 74. And I think there are a lot of people in that. So I think those of us that are seeing the possibility and sort of the optimism of that it's not an obligation, but we have the chance to give that care and that thoughtfulness to others who are maybe not feeling that. So it's mixed. I think, that's, is a glass of water half full or half empty? I think that question is irrelevant. It's both and neither. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my past and some of my experiences around possibility. What's occurred to me and what occurred about the situation is I'm going to make it up, as in when things were happening to me going forward, it wasn't as if I had a definite plan that executed exactly as I saw it. But looking back, you can sort of see the steps. And I think this situation will be interesting in retrospect when we look back and see it. But we just can't see it at the moment. We can't see where it's going.
Yes, absolutely. And within that, unknowing. I love that glass half empty, half full, because usually we want to be one or the other. Am I feeling optimistic or pessimistic?
Yeah.
It's kind of binary, isn't it? And for it not to be, and as you say, that sense of, well, I have to accept that. I have to accept that we don't know where this is going. And if I am feeling optimistic, accept it. If I am feeling anxious, accept it, and then think about, okay, how can I just make my way through the day? And so this anxiety passes. What help do I need? What help can I give to other people? And that sense of kindness, absolutely seeing that, then was it 500,000 people in the UK have volunteered to help the NHS in some way. People are volunteering to help stack supermarket shelves. It's just an incredible thing. And that's just one country that I happen to read the news from, being the UK. And we know this is happening everywhere. People applauding on balconies to the medical services here in Spain and in Italy as well. So there's amazing things happening. But let's slightly park the current situation, because there's plenty being said about that. But I think it was important that I'm sure it will come back up in the conversation. And let's talk about your journey of possibility and what you've learned. And I love that sense of, you've been through a lot, and when you were going through it, the path might not have been super obvious at all, but looking back, you've been able to make more sense of it.
When I was 24, my dad was 42, and he died of a massive heart attack. He was in the Royal Navy, and he was away, and he had a heart attack whilst at sea. And that was a huge event for me, for my mum, for my brothers, losing my dad at that point. And I think the timeline of getting to 42, I think both my brothers had it as well, it was conscious and unconscious, that you couldn't really envisage yourself beyond I couldn't envision myself beyond the age my dad died. And what was interesting, but around, or just before that, I really got this urge, this motivation. I always felt up till quite recently that I had something to prove physically. I had exercise-induced asthma at school. I was a real sickly little stick sort of boy. Couldn't swim until I was 15. Got a lot of insecurity around myself physically. And once I got into fitness in my late teens and learned to swim, and I did my first triathlon at 24, which was completely life-changing. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it gave me an itch. So I was always involved in sport and exercise. But then at 41, I had this looming sense of, my dad died, next year, and what's going to happen to me? So that year, it was interesting. I decided I wanted to do something that felt impossible. And I'd already done quite a few things physically that were quite extreme. But what I decided was impossible was to race in the Triathlon World Championships in Australia. And from where I was at the time to qualifying, competing, that was a long distance away. And I could tell you all sorts of stories about my year. I was still working very hard. I was sort of living out of 2 or 3 places. It wasn't like I had the time and the money just to focus on it. But I remember having an enormous amount of resolution about that, and things I would do then I can't imagine doing now, like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, cold November when it was -1, and in the dark just running up and down the drive 20 times because I said I would. And what I found in that was a realization that's a sort of a realization I carry me all the time, which is when somebody asks us what we can do, the real answer is we don't know, because we don't know, because we haven't discovered it yet. And I got into nutrition. I went on retreats. I learned some practices. It wasn't just the physical side. A huge amount of it was to do with the not drinking alcohol. Was extremely difficult for that period of time because I love a glass of wine. And yeah, ultimately, a bit of a story. So the first there was 3 options to qualify. The first one I missed by 5 minutes, which is huge. It's like, you're miles off. The second qualifier I missed by 5 seconds.
Oh,
so I knew I was close.
wow.
And I had a third opportunity to qualify. And we went to the race, and I realized I'd left my bike and my equipment back at home because we got up so early. And my friend lent me his bike, lent me his wetsuit. I raced in somebody else's kit. I absolutely smashed it. I qualified and found myself at 42 on the Gold Coast in a line with a GB. It's amateur, but stood on the beach with some of the fittest 42-year-olds in the world and raced. Race for GB in the World Championships, and completing that race and standing on the beach at about 8:30 in the morning. It's about 28 degrees with my best friend Di is just one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I've still got the photo, and I remember that time. And something shifted in me from that point. The feeling of needing to prove something was just gone, and also what was interesting about that, in previous times when I've done some other sort of extreme physical experiences, I've felt this, I call it kind of like a lull or a depression that follows when and now what. Whereas something was different about this. Something was just completed. It was a wonderful experience.
So the sense of you proved something huge. Now, was that to you? Was that to someone else? Other people?
Oh God, that's a good question. I think if I'm really honest, a lot of it was about proving to other people, and I don't know why. I'm sure it wasn't important to anyone but me, but I felt like I had something to prove. It's probably that I needed to prove it to my dad. I think that ultimately is the truth, that it was kind of like, look, Dad, I can be physically perform at something. I think that was the driver. And in a way, it was a kind of an act of rebellion. Like, well, if I am going to die at 42 or 43, you're going to have a hell of a job doing it because I'm so ridiculously fit. You're going to have to create something crazy. So I think it was proving to myself that I could get myself in a place of just, phenomenal physical wellness. It was kind of sticking my fingers up and going, right, now what are you going to do? And that was ironic because a few months after, when I came back from Australia, and I was still training, but I was doing too much because I was training. I remember there's a morning I got up, it was very cold. I was out running near Richmond Park. I don't like to be overtaken, and somebody was running next to me and they were running pretty fast. So I ran a bit faster and they ran a bit faster. I'd only had about 3 or 4 hours sleep. I was getting up with an espresso to get off to work. And that day I collapsed with later I found out it was pericarditis, which is an inflammation of the sac around the heart.
Oh God.
And it's very difficult to diagnose pericarditis. But what I understand is my body was just in its last stages of breakdown from overcooking it with the training, and it's something that's quite common in triathlon, that obsession with pushing yourself. So one of the realizations is being fit and being healthy are definitely not the same thing.
Right.
And then I had 6 months of really not being very well while my body recovered. But I'm hugely grateful because everything the body shows to us is trying to help us, and that experience of pericarditis was my body saying, you now need to stop and slow down and know more. And I didn't learn my lesson fully, because I got it again about 5 years later, through similar circumstances.
Right.
But I understand
again.
it now. Yeah, it's the overtraining when you don't compromise anything else. So still working full on, still going out full on. The sleep, it's that misunderstanding that it somehow makes you good or successful if you max yourself out in everything. And I definitely have lived from that misunderstanding for a lot of my life. I see it kind of fondly now, because I think, wow, I was able to sort of get myself to do all those things. But I'm a lot kinder to myself now, and a lot less harsh in terms of my expectations of myself.
So the body almost saying, look, you have to find some balance here. If you want to go for the full-on triathlon training, okay, but you've got to pull back on maybe the work or the going out. You literally can't have all of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's so much conversation at the moment about balance. And I don't think there's a generic, everyone should find this balance. I think we've all got our own unique balance that part of us is trying to help us arrive at or get back to. And for me, all the clues are in my body, are in our bodies. It is whatever's going on for us physically is symptomatic of our imbalance, or if we are imbalanced. And I think everybody kind of knows it. It just seems to make sense to do things for what we perceive as the right thing or for other people. Yeah. But actually, if you're not, my experience is if I'm not in balance myself, I'm not any use to anyone.
Yes.
It's
yeah. I'm just laughing because I can completely relate to that. Balance is one of my core values, mentally and physically. And I know if the balance isn't there, it literally affects my mojo. And as you say, I'm of less service to people around me. I can make less impact. That's how I was feeling yesterday, in fact.
Yeah.
And you've got to get the balance back. And that, listening to the wisdom of your body is just crucial to that. And also I love what you said about, balance to one person is not the same as obviously someone else. We are, this is truism, but we are all unique. But I think we do tend to compare. So if that, like you in Richmond Park, well, I've got to be able to keep up with this person. I don't know this person, but my assumption is I've got to be able to keep up with them. And obviously look what happened. So that sense of understanding our own balance is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. You're making me remember. I'm now averse to all forms of measurement. I don't use a watch. I don't use a heart rate monitor. I don't compete.
Wow.
Because for me, anything that causes me to reference what I'm doing to something outside of me brings up a level of anxiety, or I need to prove or do something. Whereas now, if I run or I swim or I go on my bike, I have the enjoyment of having the run and having the swim or having the bike. And I feel like, why would I not want to give that to myself? I mean, there might be some people who are just so amazing that they can just race and enjoy it. But for me, it's the measurement that brings in the different energy and the expectation.
Got it. And this,
so that's been interesting.
Well, that's really interesting, because this is in a world where you can measure everything to the nth degree, right? And we are measuring everything that we're doing. And if you're, some athletes out there will know Strava, for instance, the cycling and running app, and people are out there constantly trying to beat what other people have done up a certain hill, if it's cycling, or what you yourself have done up a certain hill. And it goes, I think for me, it goes back to what you were saying about your ability to find presence and just being very in the moment. Because I think when you are measuring, you're taking yourself out of the moment, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing is it never made me go any faster looking at the numbers. I was definitely, it's all relative, but the levels I performed my best at, I wasn't looking at anything. I was just doing what I was doing and feeling it. There's a place in Mallorca called Sacralobra, and you can see it from space.
Oh, I know it.
Are in there. Oh, you've done that, and there's an obsession with your time up Sacralobra.
Yes.
I've ridden up Sacralobra about 15 times. No, and it's you talk to it's guys, it's mainly blokes.
It's all mammals, men in lycra.
The bloody comparison with like, oh yeah, what did you do Sacralobra? And it's like, it's so like there in us.
Completely. I mean, I'm laughing out of guilt now, Barry, because every October I go to Mallorca with a bunch of friends, and Sacralobra is the only part of it that we actually race, and we do a time trial up it, and by the end, everyone is in absolute pieces, and for most of the rest of the day. But we've done exactly that thing. We've compared.
Yeah.
Despite our body types and shapes, we've all compared ourselves. I think maybe one time I'd like to ride Sacralobra and just ride it. And just see.
Yeah.
And now you say things are a little bit different. You've got, I think, a very 6-month-old daughter. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, Sophia. Yeah. Which is amazing.
Yeah. Tell us about Sophia.
Wow. What is there to say? Oh my God, she's teaching me everything, because she is only here all of the time now. So watching her focus, express, move, laugh, cry, she's just alive. It's amazing to be with her. It's also exhausting to be with somebody who's just so present, but it's also amazing. It's completely amazing. I'm 54 on the 28th of this month. So she came when I was 53. So, it really wasn't on the cards for me to have a child, really, and it just shows how things can change. But oh my God, the blessing of her. And I've personally, it's amazing to have her now, because I feel like I can be there, and I am with her, and I'm not I'm definitely not work obsessed or achievement, success, and all that. I'm not chasing anything, I don't think, these days. And yeah, it's an incredible blessing to have her. And she's my reminder constantly of how life is a gift, like all of it, and all the little things that are seemingly small. Because I've been caught up in, I need to make a big impact, and I want to grow this, and we need to make that. And a few people have said this to me, which really makes me laugh. They've said about their own children, oh my God, babies are such time wasters. And it really strikes me as ironic that you would consider time with your baby like wasted. But I know what they mean. It's, you sort of sit down and she's gurgling away, and you're sort of playing with something, and then you look up and it's 2 hours have gone. So time does change. But yeah, I mean, she's the gift of my life.
I love that story anyway, but it's very appropriate for me, because I'm about to become a father, and I'll probably be 47 when I become a father in about 6-7 weeks away, depending on the actual date. So just hearing that gives me a lot of chills. Actually, it's lovely to hear it. We're exceptionally excited and about the gift that is awaiting us, and I I work in a very different way now to I did, let's say, 2 years ago when I was working for a company, and now I work for myself, and that sense of just having the time, and that's what I'm really looking forward to, is just having the time to sit with our little one and just be, as you were saying, and hopefully not worrying too much about other things I might be doing, because this is the most important thing. And even in this lockdown we're in now, it's forced my wife and I essentially to start maternity and paternity leave just early. So we're,
Yeah.
we're hunkered down, we've got what we need around us, and we're being, we're spending, all this time together and focusing on this growing baby. And it's precious. It is precious.
Yeah.
Wasn't planned this way.
Yeah.
There we are.
I'm really excited for you. We had a home birth as well. I'd say, yeah, it was a mutual agreement between me and Shelley, my partner, but it was a massive gift, her being prepared to have the home birth. But I was present, and well, I in effect delivered Sophia in the bathing pool we had at home. So her first contact was with me as she came out of her mother. It was, yeah, that was. I was going to say I could give you all sorts of stories of things that I've, done in my life and overcome, but Sophia coming into the world and being present for that changed everything forever in that moment. Like, it's very hard to describe, and you'll have this experience. But the way I've described it is like all my atoms came apart and then reassembled themselves in a different order. But I still, it's and we and as men we're mainly the spectator. I mean, God knows what the experience is like for the woman. I can't even comprehend it. But for me, in terms of being there and being present, it's like all the other things that I've ever experienced in my life added together don't amount to 0.001% of that experience.
Well, and aren't we lucky? Because even a generation ago, men weren't expected, and some were actually not invited into the birthing room. Just wasn't what you did, was expected, or it was even allowed. And now it's hugely encouraged. And I couldn't imagine being anywhere but there, and going through it together. And as you say, the mother is having this just all manner of incredible things. Creation is happening, but for us fathers, actually being there, being involved, not being bystanders, but being actively involved, which is what, like you, I really want to be, and hopefully will be. Yeah, what an experience! And I just thank you for the way you've described it. I mean, wow, that's that's incredible.
Yeah. What's making me reflect on talking to you about these experiences is I've had so many experiences at the time where I couldn't make sense of what was going on, or I was feeling really hard done by and like a victim, and I can't believe this is happening to me. And it's only hindsight that gives you any perspective on anything. And what I see now is if any of the experiences I've had hadn't been exactly what they were, then I wouldn't be in the place that I am with my daughter. And one of the things I really try and do with myself, but I also try and do with my family, people I love and care about, is to at least try and stop judging things so much as being either right or wrong, or good or bad, or this or that. I think it's the labeling of things that gets in the way of us just enjoying our experience, and the whole experience we're all having now. And in a year's time, 10 years time, whatever, when we're telling our stories about this time, we've got the chance to have, and we are having unique experiences. Yeah. And I feel like the way Sophia does is just have the experience. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm trying to do. And you then sort of you come back to reality. Oh, what about the work? What about the money? What about the future? There are what feels like hard realities, but then you can only deal with them one day at a time. because we only live now. So yeah, I feel really lucky. I could tell you so many stories, which probably to a lot of people would feel really extreme. But I look back on those experiences and think, wow, I had that experience. And because I'm talking to you now, I didn't die. Came close quite a few times.
Oh well, Barry, I think you're going to need to tell us at least one. Tell us one of those. What sounds like a near-death experience.
Well, yeah. So about 5 years ago, I'd decided I was losing my mojo and sort of was romanticizing about my days of racing, and decided I was going to enter the Weymouth half Ironman. And all my family lived down there, so I was dropping down the hill after about a 50-mile bike ride back into Weymouth, and a car was on the wrong side of the road. My friends had carried on past, and a car was parked on the wrong side of the road, and I was coming down the hill at about 50 miles an hour, and there was a 2-foot gap, which I decided to go for the gap at the same time he chose to pull across the road. I found out later they were people from Spain on holiday, and I got a bit disorientated, so I hit the car on my bike at about 50 miles an hour and went up and over the top. And I remember lying on my back. And then there was a moment of sort of shock and then excruciating agony, because what I'd done is I'd fractured and dislocated my right shoulder. So my arm was sticking out my body at an angle that isn't natural. And then once the adrenaline wore off and the muscles wrapped around the dislocated, fractured shoulder in a different position, I can't. I've got no reference point for the pain. Apparently, it is one of those painful things you can do. So I was carted off in an ambulance and taken to the Weymouth Hospital. And one of the things I remember, and certainly after that experience, oh my God, the skill and the professionalism and effectiveness of the team that dealt with me was off the planet. All that sort of criticism of the health service and all this sort of thing. Oh my God. I've worked with Formula One teams around high performance. In fact, I've worked with the pit crew that had the world record for the fastest tire change. So I've worked with some people and some teams who are the best in the world at what they do. The team that looked after me was a whole nother level of experience. And that was my first experience of my upbringing was around, when you're young, you grab a beer, you're trying to like sneak alcohol from your parents and that sort of thing. But I'd never taken any drugs of any kind. And I was given, because they had to put my shoulder back in, but because of the pain, that was going to be impossible while I was lucid, and they didn't want to give me a general because of the risk. So I was giving a substance called midazolam, which apparently is only given in 3 circumstances. It's given to offenders on death row as part of a cocktail. It's given to people in palliative care at life end, and it's given to people in situations that I was in where they need to do sort of radical surgery, but they need to not have you fully unconscious.
Right.
And so I hadn't eaten all day. I'd ridden 50, 60 miles. I'd had the accident. My body was in fairly good shape. I'd say it was like virgin territory. And I was given this drug, midazolam. And I still remember it was the first experiences that I had of my consciousness or myself detaching from my thinking. And that experience was profound because I had the direct, not the intellectual, I had the direct experience of seeing and knowing that I wasn't my thinking, that there was a me that wasn't my thoughts. And it's probably taken pretty much from then to now and a whole lot of other experiences and exploring that in different ways. And I would say seeing that you are not your thinking is probably one of the most important realizations that you can have in life. It's a difficult concept to get your head round.
Well, I was going to say, is like so that we're not talking like an out of body experience as such.
No, I was in my body.
Yeah.
And the way I describe it, it's more like a dropping. I felt like my thoughts and my consciousness, let's call it my thinking, was up above me. And I dropped below that and then just was held in this space of love and beingness and absence of any worry or stress or thinking. It was like I still existed,
Right.
and I wasn't thinking. And you can imagine, I got extremely curious about that after I came through the accident and had all the sort of hospital treatment and everything like that. And I've spent the time between then and now further exploring what it is to be conscious of living life knowing I'm not my thinking, and seeing thinking as something that comes and goes. The analogy I use, which I really like, is it's like that our thoughts are like clouds, as in they and the idea that we control our thoughts, should change our thoughts, now for me seems a nonsense. I'm trained in all sorts of different therapies and modalities and things like NLP in the past, but now I see there's a far more powerful realization, which is to know you're not your thoughts. They come and they go. Because with those thoughts comes emotion. And a friend of mine uses this lovely phrase. He says, "You're feeling your thoughts." And I think we all experience it like that. We have thinking comes into our mind. We then start to feel something based on those thoughts, and then more thoughts come, and before you know it, you're fed up or you're exhilarated. But what's interesting is that's not necessarily the reality of what is going on at that moment. So I wouldn't say I've mastered it, but I mean, it's certainly the whole purpose of meditation and mindfulness practice is I think there's different ways to it. How I wasn't more seriously injured or killed in that accident is a miracle.
Yeah.
But having had that accident and then having that experience opened up a whole area of possibility for me that, looking back, I couldn't imagine now not of having had that experience. It's been amazing.
Barry, thank you for that amazing conversation, and thank you for joining us on the Mojo podcast.
Yeah, wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much. Take care.
I love the depth of the conversation I had with Barry. Amazing this is with someone I haven't actually physically met yet. But it really doesn't seem to matter as much as I would have thought. And I guess a lot of us are doing that right now, having interactions and meaningful conversations with people we may not have met, again, over platforms like Zoom, Skype, Hangouts, whatever it might be. We did have to end our chat a little rapidly. Guess what? Barry had another Zoom call coming in. Anyway, you can find out more about Barry via his business website, which is zoomgb.com, and also find him on LinkedIn. My overriding takeout is this sense that we can all take on the seemingly impossible, as we don't really know what we are capable of until we try it. It doesn't have to be a physical challenge. Perhaps we don't yet know how kind or loving we can be, or how patient, or what great homeschoolers to our children we can be. We're all discovering more about our possibilities right now, aren't we? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, please do remember to subscribe, leave that 5-star rating, and that quick review if you can on Apple Podcasts, all of it making the Mojo podcast more discoverable for more people. We've got more great episodes coming up every week, so stay safe, stay home, keep well, and I hope your mojo continues to flow.